Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from the Vatican. The need to achieve peace in the Middle East and the status of Jerusalem were just two of the topics that Pope Francis discussed with the President of Turkey, who visited the Vatican February 5th as part of a two-day trip to Italy. Rome Reports brings us more from the meeting.
Pope Francis met in the Vatican with the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The last time a Turkish head of state visited the Vatican was 59 years ago. The greeting was restrained, but lasted a few seconds. The meeting was proposed by the Turkish president following Donald Trump announcing his intent to move the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, an act that would exacerbate religious tension in the city. The Holy Father and his guest held a private encounter for nearly 50 minutes, while these meetings rarely exceed a half hour. Pope Francis and Erdogan discussed bilateral relations between the two states, the humanitarian crisis in Syria, the Catholic community's current situation in Turkey, and the conflict between Jerusalem and Palestine. Relations between the Vatican and Turkey have had their ups and downs. Pope Francis's public condemnation of Turkey's genocide of Armenians in 1915 seemed to unsettle the current Turkish leader. Benedict XVI's comments on Islam in his Ratisbona address in 2006 didn't sit well either. Following an extended dialogue, Pope Francis met with the president's wife and his daughter, Ezra. Then they exchanged gifts. The president presented the Pope with a handmade ceramic image containing Istanbul's landmarks, as well as 4 books by Persian poet Rumi. Pope Francis gave the president a medal with an angel. He also presented him with this etching of St. Peter's Basilica and a copy of his Laudato Si encyclical, along with his message for the World Day of Peace.
More news from the Vatican. At the Angelus prayer this past Sunday, Pope Francis marked Italy's Pro-Life Sunday and also called for a day of prayer and fasting for peace. Speaking to about 20,000 people gathered in St. Peter's Square, the Pope said it worried him that there aren't many who fight on behalf of life in a world where every day more weapons are made, where every day more laws against life are passed, where every day this throwaway culture expands, throwing away what isn't useful, what is bothersome to too many people. The Pope asked for prayers that more people would join the pro-life movement. The Pope also called for a special day of prayer and fasting for peace on February 23rd, especially for the populations of the Democratic Republic of Congo and of South Sudan, which are experiencing upheaval and violence. In news from around the world, with World Youth Day coming up next January 2019 in Panama, preparations are well underway. And according to the Archbishop of Panama, one of the organizers of the event, they will be highlighting themes from Laudato Si as well as the Latin American Church.
In less than a year, Pope Francis will once again board a plane bound for Latin America for World Youth Day in Panama. Jose Domingo Ulloa is one of the main organizers of an event that will join thousands of young people from around the world. Ulloa assures it will be different from previous editions. First of all, it will be an edition that speaks the language of young people, a technological one that will present Mary as the model the youth need. It will also be ecological. We can say it will be good for implementing the great gift the Pope gave humanity in Laudato Si. We also want to present the path of the Latin American Church, a church of martyrs whose highest exponent is Monsignor Oscar Arnulfo Romero. World Youth Day will be celebrated from January 22nd to 27th in 2019. In preparation, a special initiative has been launched in Poland. Thanks to a beautiful initiative by Polish youth, we are uniting in prayer on the 22nd of each month in remembrance of St. John Paul II, who loved the youth so much. We want this initiative to spread throughout the world. In mid-February, registration for World Youth Day will open. Although the agenda hasn't been finalized, Pope Francis will likely participate in ceremonies beginning on January 24th.
In news from around the country this year, on Ash Wednesday, the annual collection for the Church in Central and Eastern Europe will be taking place in most parishes in the U.S. The collection supports pastoral, evangelization, and construction projects, as well as educational scholarships in Central and Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Other areas of funding include lay and religious formation, poverty outreach, and communications. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Subcommittee on Aid to the Church in Central and Eastern Europe awarded over $9.1 million in grants last year for 318 projects in support of the church in formerly communist countries of the region. And finally in the news, during the recent Archdiocese of Portland's Encuentro gathering, many of the 170 delegates present came forward to drop signed cards at the foot of a cross, promising to live as missionary disciples who will go to neighborhoods, streets, and marketplaces to share their personal encounter with Jesus. The event was a key part to the gathering, along with the Encuentro Mass celebrated by Portland Archbishop Alexander Sample. During the Mass, the Archbishop told those gathered that everyone is called to be disciples of Jesus Christ, who are also missionaries to others. No one can escape this responsibility. The Archbishop also made a plea for unity. Catholics, no matter their culture, he said, must come together as one body of Christ, not separate communities using the same church building. Of the 455,000 Catholics in Western Oregon, 60% are Hispanic. Diocesan-level encuentros and regional encuentros are taking place around the country through June as part of a process of reflection and action leading up to the U.S. Catholic Church's 5th National Encuentro, to be held September 20th through the 23rd in Grapevine, Texas. Well, that's all the information we have for you this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV Network.